This is the Buffett Mindset channel where we practice patience and calm wealth building daily. If you enjoy these types of videos, consider liking and subscribing. This will mean a lot to the channel. Fearlessness, my friend, isn't the absence of fear, it's the mastery of it. It's learning to walk into the storm and still keep your hat steady, your jaw set, your stride deliberate. The world wants you to believe courage means never trembling, but that a lie whispered by those who've never stood against real pressure. True courage is trembling and walking anyway. It's the man who wakes up with uncertainty in his gut and still builds the day with steady hands. That is what separates the dreamers from the doers, the survivors from the legends. You see, every time fear rises and you act despite it, you carve strength into your soul. And one day, without noticing, you wake up and realize you've become something untouchable, a man no longer swayed by the winds of chance. There was a time when I thought courage came from comfort. I thought I had to be ready, prepared, armored before I could act. But I was wrong. Courage is born in chaos. It grows when everything you relied on breaks, when plans fail, when friends vanish, when luck dies.
Yeah, that hollow silence where your true self steps forward, your other self, the one that doesn't flinch, that when you find out who you are, not when the path is smooth, but when the bridge is burning behind you. And I tell you plain, that version of you has been waiting all along. It not born in you, it forged by choice. Every time you act when fear screams stop, you summon that self. Every time you take another step when comfort begs you to sit, you're chiseling away at weakness. Fear doesn't fade by waiting, it fades by facing. When the world collapses, most men look for someone to save them. They pray for rescue, for signs, for easier weather. But the fearless man understands that no help is coming, and that realization doesn't destroy him, it frees him, because once you stop waiting for rescue, you start building your own escape. Once you stop expecting approval, you start commanding respect. The man who walks through ruin and keeps his purpose alive cannot be defeated, because everything outside him can fall, but what inside remains untouched. That's what fearlessness is.
Not even at fire without thought, and walking through fire with intention. It looking at pain and saying, you may burn me, but you do not rake me. The secret? The weak never learn. Is that fear is fuel, it's raw energy waiting to be redirected. The difference between the man who freezes and the man who conquers is not the presence of fear, it's the direction of the tool. One lets fear drain him, the other lets fear drive him. When I lost everything, when nights were cold and hope was gone, it wasn't strength that saved me, it was decision. Decision to move even when shaking. Decision to act even when blind, that with faith meets fire. You can't think your way out of fear. You have to act your way through it. You have to make movement your answer to doubt, because action is the antidote to anxiety. The moment you take control of your movement, you take control of your mind. Now, listen close. There are two laws that govern fear. The first, it grows when fed. The second, it dies when faced. Every time you hesitate, you feed it.
Every time you act, you starve it. That's why the fearless don't waste time negotiating with nerves. They move before their mind can sabotage them. They speak before the doubt finishes its sentence. They decide before excuses multiply. Fear cannot coexist with decision. It lives in delay. So every time you cut delay in half, you cut fear throat. That's how you build momentum. That's how you become dangerous. The man who moves quickly in the face of fear rewires his very biology. His brain begins to associate discomfort with growth, and soon enough, fear becomes fuel. But let me tell you the truth, most won't. Fear never truly disappears. It just changes shape. The man who says he feels no fear is either lying or he's dead inside. The goal isn't to eliminate fear, it's to domesticate it, to tell it work for you, to train it like a wild horse until it carries your vision through the fire. That what the old masters knew, fear is a signal, not a sentence. It tells you you're on the edge of something great.
The guardian at the gate of greatness, and the only way past it is through it. Most men turn round when they feel fear. The few walk straight through. Those few change everything. The question then isn't how to stop feeling fear, but how to live above it. The answer is, folks, because fear feeds on attention. It grows in the direction you look. The moment you stop staring at what could go wrong and fix your gaze on what must go right, the balance shifts. Your mind becomes your ally again. Your body follows. The same energy that once paralyzed you now propels you. Fear has no power over a man who already decided where he's going. If that's the secret, decide first. Feel later. Most men do it backward. They wait to feel brave before they act. But the brave act before they feel it. That's why they win. So when the storm hits, when the ground trembles, when all else fails, don't wait for the fear to leave. Step into it. Speak to it. Tell it what to do. The fearless man isn't a man without fear.
Right. And a man whose faith is louder than his fear. He knows that the same God who built mountains also built him, and that means he built to climb. When fear whispers you can't, he answers. Watch me. When doubt says it over, he smiles and says, I'm the beginning. Because he understands that faith isn't about seeing the path, it's about taking the step when you can't. It's to walk through darkness with the certainty that light is waiting. Then the last truth I'll give you tonight, partner. The world belongs to the man who moves when others freeze, the one who acts when others think, the one who builds when others blame. That the man fear bows to, that the man who bends reality to his will. You were born with that in you, not borrowed, not gifted, but built in bone and breath. You don't need to find courage, you need to release it. It's been waiting for you since the day you were born. The question is, will you answer? Most men never answer that call.
They wait their whole lives for the right moment to feel ready, to feel worthy, to feel confident. They tell themselves that someday they'll take the leap. Someday they'll build that business, start that journey, chase that dream. But someday never cuz. Fear disguises itself via logic, whispers sweet nothings, say be realistic, wait until things settle, maybe next year, and before they know it, their fire turns to ash. Their days become reruns of hesitation, their minds become haunted houses of what-ifs. They die long before their last breath because they let fear bury their courage alive. Don't you do the same, my friend. Don't let another sunrise rise over a man still running from himself. Because courage doesn't visit the hesitant. It belongs to the decisive. Fear has one weapon, hesitation. It doesn't need to strike hard. It only needs to stall you. Every second you spend thinking instead of doing, doubted instead of moving, the chains grow heavier. You cannot outthink fear. You must outmove it. The battlefield is just in your circumstances, it in your delay. The first step is your sword, the next is your shield. Every movement builds momentum, and momentum destroys fear like sunlight kills shadow. The man who learns this, the man who moves while trembling, who acts while uncertain, that the man who conquers kingdoms unseen. Because life rewards not the strongest nor the smartest, but the mover, the one who acts despite every trembling nerve, every whisper of doubt. Now listen closely. They're a part of you that been asleep. The warrior, the builder, the unbreakable one. You've heard his voice before, faint but firm, telling you to stand when you wanted to surrender. That your other self, the one unshaken by failure, untouched by opinion, unmoved by fear. You've glimpsed him in your best moments, the times you surprised yourself, the moments you rose from dust, the seconds you refused to quit. But then the noise of life drowned him out, the fear of loss, the pressure to please, the comfort of mediocrity. And so the warrior slept again. But to the truth, he not gone. He waiting for command, waiting for you to call him back to the front lines. You don't need to become someone new. You need to remember who you are when fear isn't steering your life. You see, courage doesn't appear by accident. It's built through small victories. Every time you face what you fear, even in the smallest way, you grow in power. You become more dangerous to the excuses that once ruled you. Fearless men are not born. They are trained in pain, discipline, and truth. Every great man you admire went through darkness. Buffett, Ford, Roosevelt, they had seasons of collapse, but what separated them was fortune or intelligence. It was decision. The decision to walk through fear like it was fog. They didn't wait for calm seas. They learned to sail through storms. And when life tested them then, they were unshaken, because they had already conquered themselves.
When everything falls apart, when nothing goes planned, when every door slams shut, that when your training begins, that when fear shows its real face, it tells you you're alone, it tells you you're done. But that's the trick, because the moment you stop running from that feeling and stand your ground, something powerful happens. You find stillness inside the storm. You realize the world can't break what already surrendered to truth, the truth that you were built for this, that storms don't destroy the strong, they reveal them. That's why the fearless don't pray for an easier path. They pray for stronger legs. They don't seek lighter burdens. They strengthen their shoulders. They don't wait for the wind to change. They adjust their sails. Understand this. Fear is not your enemy. It's your invitation. Every time fear rises, it pointing to something important, something sacred. It going you the next threshold of your potential. The question is whether you'll cross it. The coward runs when fear calls. The warrior answers. That's the difference between a life of regret and a life of meaning. You don't need 1,000 plans.
You need a still act of defiance, one moment where you refuse to bow, because fear breaks when you confront it. It shatters when you stare it down long enough to see through the illusion. The wall was never real. It was built from your imagination, reinforced by repetition. And once you walk through it, you realize fear was never a fortress. It was fog, thick, loud, but powerless. But you cannot simply wish your way into courage. You must condition it. You must build rituals of fearlessness into your day. Every morning, remind yourself, nothing outside of me can control me. Then face one discomfort on purpose. Speak when you're tempted to stay silent. Move when you want to pause. Act when you want to think. Each time you do, you chip away at the chains that have held generations bound. And eventually, you no longer need to pretend to be brave. You simply are. Not because fear is gone, but because fear is irrelevant. There will be nights where you'll want to give up. Days when nothing makes sense. People will doubt you, mock you, call you insane for walking paths they can't see. But let them talk. You'll keep walking, you'll keep building, you'll keep rising. Because the man who has met his other self cannot be stopped. He doesn't live for applause. He lives for alignment. He doesn't need validation. He is validation. He doesn't chase destiny. He commands it. When you reach that state, that calm, fearless center, the world starts to bend around you. Opportunities move toward you. Chaos starts before you. Because you finally aligned your spirit with truth. So remember, my friend, when anything else fails, when your plans crumble, when the road ends, that not your defeat, that your initiation, that the fire that forges your fearless self. Don't curse it, walk through it. Stand tall, chin up, and whisper to the storm. You picked the wrong man to rate. For the fearless man is not the one who avoids pain, he's the one who uses this. He doesn't beg for calm seas. He learns to command the waves. He doesn't wait for miracles. He becomes one. They're a quiet kind of power that lives in the man who has faced himself and refused to flinch. You can see it in his eyes, steady, unhurried, unbothered by the chaos around him. The fearless man doesn't waste breath proving himself. He already knows who he is. He doesn't chase applause or validation, because he anchored in something deeper, an inner knowing that he built for more. While others ate for the perfect wind, he rose. While others complain about the storm, he studies the rhythm of the waves and learns how to command them. Fearless men are not loud. They are precise, calculated, purposeful. They move with the gravity of someone who already won the battle within. Because that Vit said wars begin and end in the silence of your own thoughts. Every man must come to that crossroad at least once in his life. The moment when fear and faith demand your allegiance. The moment where you must choose between comfort and calling. That the moment that separates the masses from the masters. And it's not a grand cinematic event. Sometimes it's quiet. You'll be sitting at your desk staring at a blank screen or lying in bed replaying the same mistakes, the same excuses, and then you'll hear it faint but firm, that whisper that says, move. Not when you're ready, not when you feel brave. Now, the weak wait for the right conditions, the strong create them. That's it. You build fearlessness through obedience to that whisper. Every time you listen, you rise a little higher. Every time you hesitate, you sink a little deeper into mediocrity. The world doesn't punish you for fear. It punishes you for obedience to fear. Fear has never been a wall or doorway. The problem is, most men stop at the threshold because it's dark on the other side. They'd rather stay in the dim light of familiarity than step into the unknown, right their destiny waits. But the fearless man understands that darkness isn't danger, it's discovery. You can't find new worlds under old skies. You have to walk where no map exists. And that means walking with faith, your compass, not comfort. You see, fear and faith are born from the same source. They're both imaginations of the future. One imagines defeat, the other imagines victory. The fearless man simply chooses which story to believe. He doesn't wait for proof, he creates it. He doesn't beg for confidence, he builds it through action, one step at a time. There will always be moments where fear disguises itself logic. It'd sound reasonable. It'd whisper maybe it's not the right time, or be careful, this could go wrong. It wears the voice of your parents, your teachers, your past failures. It's cunning, patient, persuasive. But understand, this fear is not your protector. It's your limiter. It doesn't want to keep you safe. It wants to keep you small. It knows the moment you take that first real step, you'll rake its spell forever. That's why it fights hardest right before your breakthrough. That's why the nights feel longest before dawn. The moment you start to rise, fear multiplies its voice, but that's the signal you're close. Don't listen, don't pause. Move through the noise like a bull through tall grass, slow, steady, unstoppable. Men talk about courage like it a feeling, but it not. It a decision. You decide to stand when everything inside you screams to run. You decide to keep swinging when your arms are heavy and your heart on fire. You decide to walk into rooms where you're the least qualified and speak yet if you belong. That courage, not the absence of fear, but the refusal to let fear decide. You may not control the wind, but you command the sail. And when you command yourself long enough, life begins to follow your orders. That's why the fearless man doesn't pray for smaller problems. He prays for stronger shoulders. He doesn't wish for fewer battles. He trains for greater wars, because he understands that fear will never leave, but it to learn to respect him. Let me tell you something the timid will never understand. Peace isn't found in the absence of storms. It's found in the man who learned to remain still inside them. The fearless man doesn't need silence to think clear. He can hear his soul through thunder. That power, not loud, not flashy, just calm, unwavering authority. You see it in the eyes of warriors, builders, and thinkers alike. The ones who carry entire worlds in their chest and who walk as if they weigh nothing. That's because they've handed their fear over to something greater: faith, purpose, truth. Once you stop serving fear, you start serving meaning. And meaning, my friend, is the strongest armor a man can wear. But make no mistake, becoming fearless will cost you. You'll lose friends who prefer the old version of you. You'll lose comfort, excuses, and the illusion of safety. You'll walk alone for a while. And in that loneliness, you'll meet yourself for the first time. The world will test you. It throws storms, betrayal, failure, and exhaustion your way. But each time you stand back cut, something happens. You become untouchable. The fire that once burned you now lights your way. The pain that once weakened you becomes your teacher. Fear loses its teeth when you've already walked through its jaws. The fearless man has scars, but they're not wounds anymore. They're armor. When all else fails, when your plans crumble, when your strength fades, remember this: fear can't kill a man who already decided to live with purpose. It can bruise him, slow him, test him, but it can't break him, because his power doesn't come from circumstance. It comes from conviction. He doesn't wait for conditions to favor him. He becomes the condition that changes everything. That's the secret of the unstoppable. They don't look for signs. They become them. They don't pray for light. They carry it. They don't ask for permission. They move as if the universe already said yes. You can do it. You lose friends who prefer the old version of you. You lose comfort, excuses, and the illusion of safety. You'll walk alone for a while. And in that loneliness, you'll meet yourself for the first time. The world will test you. It throws storms, betrayal, failure, and exhaustion your way. But each time you stand back cut, something happens. You become untouchable. The fire that once burned you now lights your way. The pain that once weakened you becomes your teacher. Fear loses its teeth when you've already walked through its jaws. The fearless man has scars, but they're not wounds anymore. They're armor. When all else fails, when your plans crumble, when your strength fades, remember this: fear can't kill a man who already decided to live with purpose. It can bruise him, slow him, test him, but it can't break him, because his power doesn't come from circumstance. It comes from conviction. He doesn't wait for conditions to favor him. He becomes the condition that changes everything. That's the secret of the unstoppable. They don't look for signs. They become them. They don't pray for light. They carry it. They don't ask for permission. They move as if the universe already said yes. That one, we all need to become fearless when all else fails. You stop asking, what if I fall, and start declaring, what if I fly?
Yeah, the beauty of it, when you reach that place of calm defiance, fear stops being your master and becomes your mirror. It shows you where your next victory lies. Every time fear whispers not there, that exactly where you go. Every time it warns, don't try that exactly what you do, because a fearless man doesn't fight fear anymore. He uses its guidance. It lets us point toward growth, then he walks straight into it. That the secret few learn. The brave don't conquer fear by destroying it. They conquer it by befriending it, mastering it, turning it into a compass for greatness. Fear is a teacher in disguise. It arrives in moments of weakness, not to punish you, but to refine you. Every great transformation begins at the edge of fear. The moment before you act, when your heart pounds and your breath short death, at the threshold, that your future is born. Most men run from that feeling. They mistake it for danger when it really direction. Fear is a signal that you've stepped beyond comfort and that exactly where growth begins. The fearless man doesn't run from fear, he studies it.
Ask, what are you trying to teach me? Because fear always points to the area of your greatest potential. It hides the treasure behind its shadow. The man who learns this no longer fears fear itself. He hunts it because he knows every time he finds it, he finds a new version of himself waiting on the other side. You want to know the real secret of fearlessness? It's not to pretend you're brave. It's to tell the truth to yourself in the moment you want to run. Say it plainly. I am afraid, but I'm moving anyway. There's magic in that honesty, because the moment you admit fear but refuse to submit, something ancient awakens inside you. It's the same force that carried explorers into uncharted seas, that pushed inventors through endless failure, that gave men like Edison, Ford, and Carnegie the strength to build empires out of nothing. It's not arrogance, it's surrender to purpose, to conviction, to the inner command that says, this must be done and I am the one to do it. Fear is loud, but obedience to truth is louder. That the moment you stop listening to your nerves and start listening to your nature.
The fearless man is not careless. He does not leap without thought. He does not swing wildly into chaos. No, his power comes from clarity. Fear loses its grip when you replace confusion with purpose. When you wake each morning with a mission written so clear in your mind that doubt has no room to speak. The man who knows why he must act cannot be stopped by fear of how it might go wrong. Purpose silences panic. When you know what you're fighting for, the battle loses its terror. That's why discipline and vision are the cornerstones of fearlessness. Without them, courage collapses into recklessness. But with them, every step you take carries the weight of destiny. Every decision becomes sacred. Every action becomes unstoppable. Let me tell you something most men never understand. Fear grows in isolation. It feeds on silence, on unspoken worry, on the thoughts you never challenge. The longer you hide from it, the stronger it becomes. The fearless man doesn't hide his fears. He drags them into the light and stares them down. He names them. Because what you name, you control. You cannot defeat what you deny.
That when fear whispers, you're not enough, the fearless man answers, watch me prove you. When fear says you'll fail, he responds, then I'll rise again. He treats fear not as a wall, but as a sparring partner, a tool to sharpen his will, that how he wins day after day, not by avoiding the battle, but by mastering the fight. When everything collapses and the ground gives way beneath you, that's when the fearless man training shows. He doesn't panic. He pauses, he breathes, he observes. In that stillness he finds power, because while others scream, he thinking. While others freeze, he planning. While others retreat, he already adapting. That the quiet strength the world never sees but always feels. The energy of a man who no longer fears loss, because he found something that cannot be taken, command of himself. He knows that failure is not the opposite of success. It's the raw material of it. Each setback is a lesson. Each scar is instruction. The fearless man doesn't avoid pain. He extracts wisdom from it. Remember, this fear dies in repetition. The more you face what you fear, the less power it holds.
The wild animal that loses its teeth the moment you stop running. You want to stop fearing rejection. Get rejected 100 times. You want to stop fearing failure. Fail until failure becomes familiar. You want to stop fearing pain. Sit with it until it becomes fuel. That's how the mind rewires. Exposure, action, consistency. Fear fades not because it disappears, because you become bigger than it. The fearless man is simply the man who walked through fear so many times that it no longer feels foreign, it feels like home. And plan the paradox. Once you become fearless, you stop chasing safety, you stop craving guarantees, you stop clinging to control, because you finally understand that life is not meant to be safe, it's meant to be lived. Safety breeds stagnation, comfort breeds decay, but risk, discomfort, uncertainty, that fit power is born. The fearless man doesn't pray for ease or circumstances, he prays for more opportunities to grow. He seeks resistance, not rest, because he knows resistance builds muscle, physical, mental, spiritual. Every challenge, every trial, every storm, it all strengthens the structure of his soul, and when the winds of fear come again, they find him rooted, unshaken, unmoved.
If you truly want to become fearless when all fails, stop waiting for the fear to vanish. It won't.
Instead, walk toward it. Step into the unknown again and again until the unknown becomes your ally. Speak the truth even when your voice shakes. Act boldly even when your hands tremble. Stand tall even when your knees want to buckle, because fear cannot destroy a man who moves anyway. The storm may rage, but he'll walk through it with steady eyes, whispering to himself, I was built for this. That not arrogance, that alignment, that knowing that whatever chaos the world throws, you'll find your footing. Because fear may visit, but it no longer stays. It no longer commands. It no longer defines. At the end of it, fearlessness isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It quiet, steady power. It walking into uncertainty with a calm spirit and a clear direction. It trusting that you're equipped for whatever comes, not because you've read it in a book, but what you've proven it in battle. It the slow burning certainty that no matter what happens, you'll find a way. That the kind of man the world bows to, the one who no longer needs to prove his power, because he lives it. So stand there now, straighten your spine, face the day with steel in your voice and fire in your eyes. You don't need permission, you don't need perfection, you need presence. Fear will knock, but you won't answer. You'll already be out there building, moving, living, unstoppable. Fearlessness isn't a destination, it's a practice. An art form you refine daily until it becomes who you are. It's not a title earned in comfort forged in the furnace of hardship. Each morning you rise and choose courage. You are chiseling away at the man you used to be, the one who flinched, who hesitated, who waited for life to hand him permission. The fearless man no longer negotiates with himself. He doesn't wake up wondering if he'll move forward. He already decided long before the sun breaks the horizon that fear will not sit at his table. That decision renewed every dawn is what makes him unstoppable, because once a man decides, truly decides, the world rearranges itself to match his will.
Think back on the greatest builders of wealth, the men whose names still command awe, decades after their deaths. They weren't fearless because they were immune to failure. They were fearless because failure couldn't change their direction. When Ford's first two companies collapsed, he didn't retreat. When Buffett lost millions in misjudged ventures, he didn't panic. They moved forward, as if destiny had already been written in their favor. Because in truth, it had. The moment they chose to align their thinking with faith instead of fear. The fearless man doesn't need external proof before he acts. He creates proof through persistence. He walks like the outcome is already secured. That isn't arrogance. That mental law, the world mirrors the conviction of the man who refuses to bow. But understand this, the road to fearlessness will test you in every way possible. It is strip away your illusions, expose your insecurities, and demand your discipline. It'll ask for sacrifices, friends who don't understand, habits that no longer serve, comforts that once kept you still. You'll be tempted to retreat, to go back to the life you knew. Don't. Very often, you feel that pull, that ache to quit, is the exact moment you're breaking through. Fear doesn't fight those who have surrendered. It only attacks those who are rising. The stronger the resistance, the closer you are to liberation. That's the law of growth. Pressure, first power second. The diamond doesn't curse the weight of the earth, it fights. So should you. The fearless man sees fear differently than the rest. Where most see endings, he sees initiation. Every setback is a message, a refinement, a sharpening of his blade. He knows that pain is not punishment, it's preparation. The man who avoids pain avoids progress, but the one who endures it, studies it, and transforms it becomes indestructible. When you stop fearing discomfort, life stops controlling you. The market can crash, people can doubt, storms can rage, and still you rebuild, because you've learned to operate from principle, not emotion. Fearless doesn't mean emotionless, it means unmoved. It means you feel the fear, acknowledge it, and proceed with steady hands.
Every time fear knocks, you have two choices. Open the door or fortify your foundation. If you open it, you invite chaos. But if you fortify by anchoring your thoughts, by commanding your focus, by reminding yourself of your mission, you become the mountain that no storm can move. The fearless man doesn't fight every wave. He becomes the tide. That's why he walks differently. There's gravity in his steps. A man who faced his darkest nights and still kept build carries a silence that demands respect. He doesn't speak often, but when he does, people listen, because his words carry the weight of battles won in the unseen. Fear will always test the edges of your conviction. It will ask, are you sure you're meant for this? It whispers that maybe you should settle, maybe you've already done enough, maybe comfort is safer than calling. But every time you hear that whisper, smile, because that tells you know you're walking the right path. The path of expansion always feels uncomfortable. That's how it's supposed to feel. Growth is pressure. Elevation is resistance. You are not breaking. You're being remade. Every great man you admire was forged this way. They faced moments where they thought they'd reached their limit. The fearless ones simply kept walking. And then what most never realize, fear doesn't vanish when you reach success. It yet evolves. The stakes get higher. The spotlight burns hotter. The pressure grows heavier. But by then, you've trained your spirit. You no longer need calm seas. You've become the captain who commands storms. You don't pray for lighter burdens. You've built stronger shoulders. You don't ask for certainty. You trust yourself to create it. Fearlessness isn't about conquering the world. It's about conquering the self. Once you do that, the world bends accordingly. So when oil fails, when the money gone, the friends are silent, the path ahead is fog. You remember this. You were not built to crumble. You were built to rise. Your courage isn't situational. It's sovereign. It doesn't depend on outcome, applause, or validation. It depends only on your decision to keep moving. You were made for resistance. You were born for challenge. And when life strips you bare, when it takes everything it can, what remains is truth, the indestructible version of you that no fear can touch, that the man the world been waiting for, that the man you were always meant to become. So tonight, when the noise quiets and the doubts creep in, speak these words aloud. Throughout the night, a wish, but a declaration. Fear may visit, but it does not stay. I am unshaken. I am unbreakable. I was built for this. And then sleep in peace, knowing tomorrow you'll rise again. Not as the man you were, but as the one you've always been becoming. The fearless man, the builder, the unshaken force, the calm in the storm. Fearlessness isn't loud triumph, it's quiet command. It's the ability to move forward when logic tells you to turn back, when the world expects you to fold, when everything familiar inside you shakes. The fearless man knows that most people aren't defeated by the size of their obstacles, they're defeated by the volume of their doubts. He understands that the battlefield is never out there and in the space between two thoughts. The wars are won. And so he trains for that space like a soldier trains for war. Every morning he sharp pit his mind with stillness. Every night he reviews his battles, not to regret, but to refine. Emily studies himself the way a blacksmith studies his fire. Because he knows when the fire roars, when life tests his edge, only the forged survive. The fearless man does not waste breath complaining about storms. He studies the pattern of the lightning and learns how to harness its light. That's what makes him different from the crowd. While most pray for calm, he prays for control. While others avoid the dark, he builds lanterns in it. He doesn't seek a life without fear. He seeks mastery over it. Because fear, when understood, is not that enemy, it's a compass. It points towards the places you've avoided, the work you've delayed, the life you've been afraid to live. The fearless man uses that compass daily. When fear points north, he walks north. When it says not there, he smiles and says exactly there. You must understand something. Courage doesn't feel good. It burns, it stretches you, it makes you question whether you've made the right choice. But beneath that discomfort is the birth of strength. The fearless man knows that comfort is the coffin of greatness. Every man who had changed the world chose to step into the discomfort of uncertainty. The Wright brothers risked ridicule. Carnegie risked his fortune. Buffett risked time and patience. And each of them, in their own way, faced the same silent trial you face now, the decision to move while afraid, that the moment the world waits for. Not when you're ready, not when you're safe, but when you move anyway. The truth is, fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. One must yield to the other, and whichever you feed daily becomes your master. Feed fear through hesitation, and you'll live your life circling the same hill. Feed faith through action, and mountains will move for you. The fearless man doesn't wake up fearless, he builds it, one disciplined act at a time. He moves through the trembling, he acts through the doubt, he speaks through the shaking voice. That's how he rewires his mind. Because every act of courage plants a seed, and over time, those seeds bloom into confidence. You don't wake up fearless, you earn it through obedience to the moment that scares you most. Fearlessness also demands solitude. The man who needs constant noise will never meet his inner strength. Silence is where fear reveals itself. That's why the fearless man values quiet mornings and long, lonely nights. That fair he hears the truth beneath the noise, that fair he remembers his mission. And mission is what makes him indestructible. A man on a mission cannot be manipulated. You can't bribe him, distract him, or discourage him, because his direction doesn't come from the crowd, it comes from conviction. That's why the fearless man moves differently. While others chase applause, he chases alignment. While others seek validation, he seeks velocity. His worth isn't measured by what he owns, it's measured by what he overcomes. That the essence of it, the fearless man isn't fearless because nothing scares him. He's fearless because he already decided what matters more. When purpose becomes your North Star, fear becomes background noise. When you serve a vision greater than yourself, fear loses its throne because it can no longer threaten what you value most. You can take the money, the comfort, the reputation, but you can't touch a man whose mission burns hotter than his fear. That the man who keeps walking when others kneel. That the man who builds legacies from ashes. The final transformation of fearlessness is acceptance. The inzunting that fear will always return, whispering in new tones, disguising itself in new forms. But when it does, the fearless man welcomes it because he knows it's proof he's still growing. Fear visits men who are moving. It doesn't bother the stagnant. It doesn't chase the idle. Fear chases movement. So when you feel it, smile. You're alive. You're expanding. You're in the arena. That old transformation happens. So the next time fear grips your chest, don't wait for it to pass. Speak to it, move through it, command through it. Tell yourself, this is the feeling of evolution. This is the sound of becoming. Because fear isn't a sign you're weak. It's the evidence you're standing at the threshold of your next level. Step to it. Again and again until the world recognizes you, the one who never bowed, until fear itself grows tired of testing you and kneels instead. And when that day comes and it did, you'll walk through life with a calm that others mistake for luck, for talent, for a secret blessing. But you'll know better. You'll know that calm was carved from countless battles fought in silence. You'll know that your peace was earned by walking through storms instead of waiting for them to end. That's what fearlessness truly is. Not absence of storms, but mastery within them. Not the lack of trembling hands, but the steady heart that moves them anyway. One day, long after your name is forgotten, someone will inherit the fruit of your courage. They'll live freer because you refuse to let fear decide your fate. And that, my friend, is the highest form of legacy. Not wealth, not fame, but the power to show by example what happens when a man stops bowing to fear and starts walking with faith. So tonight, when you close your eyes, remind yourself of this truth. Fear will visit again tomorrow, but so will you. And tomorrow, you'll rise again stronger, clearer, steadier, because that's what the fearless do. They rise, no matter what falls. Fearlessness matures into wisdom when a man stops chasing the illusion of control and begins mastering the only thing he truly possessed himself. The world will always tremble with uncertainty. Markets will rise and fall. People will come and go. The ground beneath your feet will shift without warning. But the fearless man stands not because the earth is steady, but because he has built his footing on inner law. He no longer relies on perfect conditions to act, nor on applause to continue.
Understands that courage isn't about the absence of danger, it's about presence in the midst of it.
That calm you see in great leaders, the unshaken composure that makes them seem superhuman. It's not divine favor, it's training. They learn to keep their minds anchored while storms raged around them. That stillness, that clarity, that almost supernatural confidence, it forged in silence, in self-command, in thousands of moments when fear whispered stop and they answered move. You must learn to do the same. Each day you'll face 1,000 small test moments if fear tries to negotiate with you. It won't always roar. Sometimes it'll sound rational. It'll say, "You've done enough for today," when your work is halfway finished. It'll whisper, "Rest a little longer," when opportunity is calling. It'll dress itself as kindness, best, self-care, airs, reason. But beneath the softness is the same paralysis that has stolen more dreams than failure ever did. The fearless man recognizes these whispers immediately and treats them as enemies in disguise. He doesn't debate with them, he acts, because action is the only argument fear cannot win. You cannot reason your way out of fear. You can only move through it until it dissolves. Fearlessness, then, is not grand speeches or heroic gestures. It's the small, quiet act of defiance repeated every day. Waking when you don't want to. Speaking when silence feels safer. Starting when the path isn't clear. Persisting when the reward isn't visible. These are the moments where your other self, the one forged in faith, emerges. And you continue, something subtle shifts inside you. The voice of hesitation grows faint. The need for validation fades. The body still feels the tremor of fear, but the mind no longer obeys it. That when you know you're free, not from fear, but from its dominion. There's a power that comes from facing fear long enough that it becomes familiar. The things that once terrified you start to feel like old friends, honest, demanding, but necessary. They remind you of who you're becoming, because every time you act in spite of fear, you strengthen your spiritual muscles. Confidence doesn't fall from the sky, it's built through endurance. You lift the same weight, fear, again and again until one day it doesn't crush you anymore. Instead, you carry it lightly, even gracefully, like a warrior who has learned to dance with the weapon meant to destroy him. Fearlessness also means forgiveness of yourself. Too many men punish themselves for the times they flinched, the days they retreated, the seasons they lost in hesitation. But regret is another form of fear, fear of the past, fear that maybe you've wasted too much time to recover. That's a lie. There is no timeline on transformation. The moment you decide to move forward, everything begins dead. The same world that buried you, you conspire to rebuild you. The same way the soil nourishes the seed that fell from its own broken shell. You haven't failed. You've been trained. Every defeat, every delay, every night of doubt has prepared you for this precise moment of awakening. The fearless man doesn't pretend he's perfect. It simply refuses to stay the same. He uses the lessons of his pain as tools, not chains. He studies his mistakes without self-pity, and in doing so, he extracts power from them. That's what separates the timid from the titans. The timid hide from their past. The titans harvest it. Every loss becomes instruction, every scar becomes armor, every betrayal becomes an education in resilience. Fear has nothing left to threaten you with once you realize that everything it promised to destroy has already built you stronger. At some point you'll come to understand this profound truth. Fear cannot coexist with gratitude. The moment you begin to thank the challenge, it loses its power to wound. When you look at the storm and say, "Thank you for shaping me," it no longer terrifies, it transforms. That when you cross the invisible line between surviving and mastering life, because gratitude is the highest expression of fearlessness, it says, whatever comes, I will live. Life, in response, begins to give you more to ease, doors open, people appear, momentum builds. Why? Because fear repels, but gratitude attracts. Fear tells the universe, I am not ready. Gratitude tells it, send more. You can't fake this mindset. You must live it. You must train it into your bones. And training means repetition, daily affirming, not in wishful thinking, but as mental law.
When we say, fear sees move and say, I act through the storm, rest and say, nothing can take what meant for me.
These are not slogans. They are codes. Spoken enough times with emotion, they carve new patterns into your mind. Eventually, those codes become instinct, and instinct becomes identity. When that happens, you no longer have to remind yourself to be fearless. You will simply be. And when that day comes, fear will still visit you, but it won't stay long. It will knock on your door, see the steel in your eyes, and move along because it knows now what you know. There's nothing left to conquer in a man who commands himself. That when the world begins to change around you, money flows where certainty lives, opportunity finds where faith abides. People photo where courage leads, and fear, once your master, becomes your servant, forever pushing you forward into greatness. So if you take nothing else from this, remember this creed: fear will visit, but it did not rule. Doubt it whisper, but it did not direct. The world may shake, but you will not rake. Because you've learned the secret of the fearless. To stand firm in chaos. To smile at uncertainty. And to move forward again, again, again.